From the dawn of aviation, humanity has dreamed of flying higher, faster, and further. But for every soaring success, there's a dark hangar filled with secrets prototypes so radical, so ambitious, they were deemed too dangerous to fly. Some of these machines were so treacherous, they claimed the lives of the very pilots who dared to tame them. Today, we're unsealing the classified files and counting down the most terrifying experimental aircraft ever built. First on our list is a machine that looked like it was ripped straight from a science fiction movie. The Vought V-173, better known as the Flying Pancake. This bizarre, almost circular aircraft was designed during World War II with the goal of taking off and landing on extremely short runways, like the deck of an aircraft carrier in rough seas. Its unique shape gave it incredible lift at low speeds, but it also came with a terrifying set of problems. The massive propellers, spun by powerful engines buried in the wing, created a violent, corkscrewing slipstream that made the plane incredibly difficult to control. Test pilots reported bone-jarring vibrations and a constant struggle to keep the aircraft from flipping over. While it never killed a pilot, the handling was so unpredictable that the Navy eventually decided the Pancake was a recipe for disaster and canceled the project before it could see combat. Next, we have a true monster of the Cold War, the North American XB-70 Valkyrie. This six-engine behemoth was designed to be a high-altitude strategic bomber, capable of flying at 3 times the speed of sound at an altitude of 70,000 feet. It was a technological marvel, a gleaming white spear designed to outrun any Soviet fighter jet. But flying at Mach 3 brings its own special kind of hell. The air friction was so intense that the aircraft's skin would glow red-hot. The complex variable geometry wings and engine inlets had to adjust constantly and perfectly, or the plane could tear itself apart in seconds. The XB-70's most infamous moment came during a promotional photo shoot. Flying in a tight formation with smaller jets for the camera, a tragic mid-air collision occurred. One of the chase planes was sucked into the Valkyrie's wingtip vortex, collided with its tail, and sent the massive bomber into an uncontrollable fiery spin. Both pilots in the smaller jet and one of the XB-70 pilots were killed. The disaster highlighted the extreme dangers of flying such a complex and powerful machine. And with the advent of intercontinental ballistic missiles, the Valkyrie program was ultimately grounded for good. Now let's talk about a plane that tried to redefine how aircraft take off. The Ryan X-13 Vertijet was one of the earliest attempts at creating a jet that could take off and land vertically, like a rocket. Instead of landing on wheels, the pilot had to literally fly the jet backwards and hook it onto a vertical cable attached to a special trailer. Imagine trying to thread a needle while balancing a 10,000-pound jet on a column of fire. The pilot had to look over their shoulder, judging the distance to the cable with no room for error. A slight gust of wind, a moment of hesitation, and the result would be a catastrophic crash. The cockpit visibility was terrible, and the control system was brutally unforgiving. While the test pilots who flew the Vertijet were some of the best in the world and managed to pull off several successful flights, the entire concept was deemed far too risky and impractical for any operational pilot. It was a spectacular but terrifying dead end in aviation history. From vertical takeoffs, we moved to a plane that barely looked like it could fly at all, the McDonnell X-15 Goblin. This tiny egg-shaped parasite fighter was designed to be carried in the bomb bay of a massive B-36 bomber. If the bomber was attacked by enemy fighters, the Goblin would be dropped out on a trapeze, fight off the attackers, and then fly back to the mothership to be hooked and retrieved. The idea was wild, and the execution was even wilder. The Goblin was unstable, underpowered, and its flight characteristics were described as nightmarish. But the most dangerous part was the recovery. The pilot had to fly this bucking bronco of a plane into the turbulent air beneath a giant bomber and perfectly align a hook on top of their cockpit with a tiny trapeze. It was a nearly impossible task. Test pilots repeatedly failed to dock, sometimes smashing their canopies against the trapeze and having to make emergency belly landings. After just a few terrifying test flights, the Air Force realized they were more likely to lose their own pilots than shoot down enemy planes, and the Goblin was sent to a museum. Let's turn our attention to the Soviet Union, where secrecy and ambition created some truly frightening flying machines. The Kalinin K-7 was an absolute behemoth from the 1930s. It wasn't just a plane. It was a flying fortress, a symbol of Soviet industrial might. With 7 engines and a wingspan larger than a B-52, its 2 massive tail booms housed gun turrets and were connected by a giant tailplane. But this ambitious design was its undoing. The long booms were prone to severe vibrations, a phenomenon called flutter. During one of its final test flights, a tail boom began to oscillate violently. The structure fractured, the controls were severed, and the giant aircraft spiraled into the ground, killing 14 crew members and 1 person on the ground. The K-7 proved that just because you can build something massive, it doesn't mean it will fly. Its structural flaws were so fundamental that it was simply too dangerous to exist. Another aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what was possible and paid the price was the Havilland DH 108 Swallow. This British experimental aircraft was built in the aftermath of World War II to explore the challenges of supersonic flight. It was a sleek, tailless design with sharply swept wings, giving it a futuristic look. The Swallow was fast, becoming the first British aircraft to break the sound barrier. But being tailless also made it notoriously unstable. It was prone to entering an unrecoverable high-speed stall and spin. Test pilots called it a killer, and sadly it lived up to the name. All 3 prototypes built ultimately crashed, killing their pilots. The most famous victim was Geoffrey de Havilland Jr., the son of the company's founder. He was killed when his Swallow broke up in mid-air during a high-speed dive, a tragic loss that underscored the lethal risks of exploring the supersonic frontier. Perhaps one of the most infamous widowmakers in aviation history wasn't an experimental prototype, but a production fighter that was pushed far beyond its limits, the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter. Marketed as a missile with a man in it, the Starfighter was a rocket ship. It had short, stubby wings and a long, needle-like fuselage designed for pure speed and climb rate. It was a thrill to fly, but it was also incredibly unforgiving. Its tiny wings meant it had to land and take off at terrifyingly high speeds. If the engine flamed out, its glide ratio was compared to that of a brick. The downward-firing ejection seat in early models was a death sentence if you had to bail out at low altitude. While the U.S. Air Force used it sparingly, it was widely exported to Allied nations. The German Air Force, in particular, suffered horrific losses, with nearly a third of their starfighters crashing, earning it the grim nicknames Fliegender Sarg or Flying Coffin. The plane itself wasn't inherently flawed, but it demanded a level of precision and skill that left zero margin for error, making it one of the most dangerous jets of its era. Finally, we come to a program so secret and so dangerous, it pushed its pilots to the very edge of space and human endurance. The Martin-Marietta X-15 was less of a plane and more of a rocket with a cockpit. Carried aloft by a B-52 bomber and then dropped, the X-15 would fire its powerful rocket engine, accelerating to speeds over Mach 6 and climbing to altitudes above 60 miles. Pilots flying the X-15 experienced forces and environments no one had ever faced before. They were astronauts as much as they were pilots. At the edge of the atmosphere, traditional flight controls were useless. They had to use small rocket thrusters to maneuver. Re-entry was a fiery ordeal where the slightest mistake in angle could cause the craft to burn up or skip off the atmosphere into space. One fatal accident occurred when a pilot entered a hypersonic spin at over 100,000 feet. The immense forces caused the aircraft to disintegrate, a stark reminder of the razor-thin line between groundbreaking research and disaster. The X-15 program pushed the envelope further than any other, but its inherent dangers were simply off the charts. From flying pancakes to rocket planes, these aircraft represent the high price of progress. They are a testament to the courage of the test pilots who risked everything in the name of innovation. While many of these designs ended in failure or tragedy, the lessons learned from them paved the way for the safer and more capable aircraft we rely on today. They remain a chilling and fascinating chapter in our quest to conquer the skies. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this look into aviation's most dangerous secrets, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of technology. See you next time.